Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from the Total Education Centre, and thank you for watching today's video. We really hope you enjoy these videos and that they teach you something new. If they do, please give us a like down below on the button and let us know. If you have any questions, don't forget you can contact us through the channel or through the website, and don't forget to visit our website totaleducationcentre.com.au. There you'll find all the lecture notes for these videos. You'll find student notes, teacher notes, you'll find old exam papers and things that will help you do your best in your studies. We hope you enjoy today's video. Please enjoy it. Good afternoon, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre. Today's poem we're going to talk about is Wilfred Owen's Anthem for Doomed Youth. We're going to start by doing a reading of the poem, and you'll see some images through the poem to emphasise some of the points in that poem, and then I'll go into a brief analysis of the poem to give you a guide to start you off on your studies. Anthem for Doomed Youth. What passing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns, only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty orisons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers or bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs. The shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes, shall shine the holy glimmers of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds. Well, a brief analysis of Anthem for Doomed Youth probably requires some understanding of the language that he uses, and he does start with what passing bells for these who die as cattle, which is a very confronting opening question. And there are some other things in the poem that we need to look at. For example, orisons in line 4. They're prayers of farewell for those that don't know. The other words you might want to think about are pall, which is the name of a cloth which is spread over a coffin or a tomb, and the passing bells. And those passing bells are the bells rung at the moment of a person's death to mark the passing of the soul. And they're probably terms from earlier in the last century that you're not familiar with, and they will add something to that poem. Anthem for Doomed Youth is not considered one of Owen's great classic poems, but it is a poem that offers a lot in a very simple way, and it clarifies many of his ideas in a very short, simple sonnet. Now, I haven't got time, obviously, to go into what a sonnet is and the qualities of a sonnet in this short lecture, but just remember that this is a sonnet and you probably need to look at what a sonnet is. The idea of the 8-line octet and the 6-line sestet, which break up the poem into those two stanzas, will become important and apparent to you as you read on. Anthem for Doomed Youth is extremely carefully structured. Unlike some of Owen's other poems, and the one we'll also do in this series, Strange Meaning, it doesn't ramble. It's very tight, very concise, and he's talking about whether death here can ever be dignified, whether it can ever have a meaning in war. And he talks about death and the passage and the cycle, the Christian ritual of burial, and the idea that for soldiers on the battlefield there isn't anything, there is nothing that he can give them. The passing bells, the prayers, the voices of mourning, the candles, all these elements are missing when a soldier just goes boom on the battlefield. And what is it replaced by? The wailing shells, the bugles, the rapid rifle's rapid rattle. The alliteration actually got me there too. And it's inhumane. They suffer an ignoble death, and it's an undignified death. It's not that passing that we wish we would have, the concrete passing, where everybody stands around and mourns and you have the lovely funeral service. It's bloody, it's ugly, it's noisy, and it doesn't fit a human being. And that's why in that first line he calls the men who go to war cattle, because it's like that image of the abattoir where they're set up for slaughter. And that starts you thinking about that first question, and the question that starts the second stanza or the sestet: what candles may be held to speed them all? And those questions are put there to make you think about what's happening and what happens in war. It's significant that Anthem for Doomed Youth shows the audience Owen's emotional disdain for war in a really controlled and structured manner. he still evokes a sense of horrible and terrible wastage, and he doesn't leave out the images of war that he did in another poem we just did, which was Dulcet Decorum Est, which has that horrible descriptions of death. Here he talks about a sympathetic view of the relatives left behind at the end, with that the pallor of girls' brows, the flowers of tenderness, the drawing of the blinds, the talking about home, the homes that they've left. And war's not only sad for the person that's been killed, it's sad for those people that have left behind, the families that mourn the loss of sons, the children that mourn the loss of fathers. And it's their inability to change the situation that they're in. And he looks at it. In this poem, he's both sort of an observer and an outsider. And he looks at war from a soldier's point of view, as we know. If you go back and look at the introductory lecture I gave on Owen, it tells you all the idea about his soldiering. But it also talks about here how objective he is when he looks at the war and how they die and the suffering and the struggle that they have. This poem conjures up ideas also of that the rhyme scheme, the AB is delivered with such rhythm that it reflects the repetitive movement of the guns, and it still keeps that structure that he has in those other poems, the idea of the bang bang bang, the rifle's rapid rattle and all that sort of stuff comes back. And I like the idea of the shrill demented choirs of wailing shells and bugles calling them from sad shires to end that first octet that draws us back to the idea of family in the first one. You can see that the tight structure of the sonnet's really, really important here. And the very brevity of this poem compared to some of the other poems that you're studying reflects the short life of the soldiers and the youth that they had, and their unnaturally shortened lifespan. He again talks about the wastefulness of of war, and how it's just terribly, I suppose, for want of a simpler word, sad that the events are going on and people back home really don't understand the suffering of the soldier. I like the use of the questions in this, those rhetorical questions that he sort of goes on to answer himself but makes you think about it. The poem ends, of course, with that rhyming couplet that's so common in the sonnet form, and it's a little bit more positive in the last two lines of the poem. If you're looking for any positives in Owen's poetry, I think that those last two lines are very important. Those last two lines give the poem and the deaths a certain amount of closure without lessening the sense of loss and the waste of war. And I think it's important to look for little bits of positive in Owen's poetry, and he does admire some of the things that the men do about war, but not war itself. And he doesn't see any dignity in their deaths. He prefers to see the dignity in their lives. And again, we're left with that sense of waste in this poem. Anthem for Doomed Youth clarifies lots of his ideas, and I think it's a very good poem to include in your study, because what it does is it gives you a certain clarity about the ideas that Owen has, and you'll be able to extrapolate from those into the other poems. So it's a great place to start. It's very accessible, and I welcome it. Don't forget, we have lots of information on Owen on the website, more information than we can supply in these short videos, but I do hope this video has helped you. I certainly hope that it's given you some insight into the poem and given you a way into the poem to begin your own studies in greater detail. I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre. Don't forget, if you have any questions or need further information, drop us a line through the YouTube channel. You can subscribe if you want to. And thank you very much. Good night.